Okay, part 2 of my study guide for 14.0. We're going to go to number 7. And number 7 looks like this. X squared plus 8x plus 12 equals 0. Okay, standard form. Y is 0. I'm going to factor. I don't see a GCF. This is not a PST. 12 is not a square number. It's not dots because it's not a binomial. Since A equals 1, we're going to use regular X-man. A times C is 12 and B is 8. So I'm going to say my numbers are 6 and 2 because 6 times 2 is 12 and 6 plus 2 is 8. So when I factor this, I'm going to get x plus 6 and x plus 2. And of course, you know, if we multiplied these back together using a Punnett square, we'd get this, wouldn't we? That's what factoring means. We're breaking it apart into 2 factors. Now I have to set each factor containing a variable equal to 0. Subtract 6 and subtract 2, and there are your roots. Number 8, x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. Standard form, y is 0. Factor, no GCF, not a PST, not dots. A is 1. See, 4 and 2 equal 8, and I need more negatives, so I'm going to make my 4 negative. If I multiply these, I get negative 8. If I combine them, I get negative 2. My factors are x minus 4 times x plus 2. That equals 0. Set each factor containing a variable equal to 0. Isolate the variable. X is 4. X equals negative 2. Woohoo! All right, number 9. X squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Okay, these are still giving me a choice to factor or complete the square. What the heck? I'm going to factor. Standard form. Y is 0. Factor, no GCF, not a PST, not dots. A is 1. Boom. See, 15 is 3 times 5, and 3 plus 5 is 8. My factors are x plus 3, x plus 5, and that still equals 0. Set each factor containing a variable equal to 0. Subtract 3. Subtract 5. All right. There's your solutions. That's number 9. Number 10 says we have to complete the square. No problem for us because we're smart. So it's in standard form. Y is 0. A is 1, so I don't have to divide everything by A because I need A to be 1. I do have to get rid of C because this is why this isn't a PST. If I get rid of that guy, then we can get a new C term and make it a PST. So if I get rid of negative 13 on this side, I get rid of my C, and I get this. Now I'm going to get a new C. I'm going to force this guy to be a PST. So I'm going to take B and divide it by 2 and square it, and that's going to give me my new C term. Well, B is negative 12. It's the coefficient of x. So I'm going to put negative 12 over 2, and then I'm going to square it. Well, negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6, and if I square all of negative 6, I get 36. Negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. This is huge right here. There's my new C term. That's great. This is a PST, but now my teeter-totter's out of balance. So I better put a 36 over here to keep it balanced and totally equal. My equation is still balanced if I do the same thing to both sides. Now I have forced this to be a PST. You must be a PST because I say so. How do you factor a PST? A binomial squared. What's the binomial? Take the square root of the first term, which is going to be an x. Take the sign of the middle term, which is negative, and take the square root of 36, which is 6. You just factored this. Easy breezy lemon squeezy. And if I combine these two terms, I get 49. I like 49. It's a square number. That means this is going to turn out nicely. Oh, this was squared. I want to undo squaring this, so I'm going to take its square root because these are inverses of each other. But once again, in an equation, if I take the square root of my left side, I better take the square root of my right side because it's the law, and I want to keep my balance. And this radical cancels out the power of 2, and I'm left with x minus 6. And on this side, the square root of 49 is 7. But important, important, important. If I take the square root of 49, 7 is its square root, but guess what? If I square negative 7, I also get 49. So 49 has two square roots, positive 7 and negative 7. That is so huge right there, and so many people forget it. Now I'm going to isolate my variable, so I want to get rid of this negative 6, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Add 6 to both sides. There we go. I get x equals, now this is a little problematic for some people, but don't sweat it. Bring down your 6 and then bring down your plus or minus 7. All that means is I have two equations now. One is going to be an addition equation and one's going to be a subtraction equation because x is going to be two different things. I have two solutions. X is either going to be 6 plus 7 or x is going to be 6 minus 7. Now be careful. I don't want you to do all this work and then get it wrong. So make sure you circle your terms, and when you combine them, these are all positives. How many positives is that? 13. And if I combine these, I have 6 positives and 7 negatives. 6 positives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negatives. I got one extra negative that doesn't cancel out, and we're left with negative 1, and those are your two solutions. All right, lastly, find the error in this completing the square problem. Well, I'm just going to do the problem, and you tell me where the error is. Completing the square, okay? First of all, it's in standard form. And y is 0, so I'm going to get rid of the 8. And I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And I'm going to get 4x squared minus 6x equals negative 8. Hold the phone here. Where did I get 4x squared? That's crazy. I don't know where I got that. Must have had a bad dream. Okay. Because if that was 4, we'd have to divide everything by 4, but there's not a 4 there, so I don't know. Seeing things. All right. I need a new c, so I'm going to take half of b, and I'm going to square it. So if b is negative 6, half of b is negative 3, and if I square negative 3, I get positive 9. That's my new c term. I'm going to add it here to keep my balance. I'm going to put it over here too. Add it to both sides. I have forced this to become a PST. So I'm going to factor it with the binomial squared. The square root of x squared is x. Take the sign of the middle term, which is minus, and the square root of the third term, which is 3. And that's going to give us negative 8 plus 9 is positive 1. I think I found my boo-boo. They put x plus 3 quantity squared instead of x minus 3 quantity squared on your study guide. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides because that radical is the inverse of squaring this, and I have to do it on both sides to keep my balance. This radical and this exponent of 2 cancel each other out. X minus 3 equals, now the square root of 1 is 1, but it's a positive 1 and it's also a negative 1. Huge, huge, huge. Don't forget. Isolate your variable, add 3. These cancel out. X equals, can you remember what we're going to bring down first? We're going to bring down the 3 first, the positive 3, and then plus or minus 1. It would work if we brought this down first, but I just think it's easier this way. Now I have two equations. X is either going to be equal to 3 plus 1, or X is going to be equal to 3 minus 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, all positives. 3 positives, 1 negative. 3 positives, 1 negative gives me 2 positives left over. And there are your 2 roots, your 2 x-intercepts, your 2 solutions, your 2 zeros. Bingo, bango, bongo. That's the end of video 2 for Study Guide 14.0.